Good evening, Bhavya. Good evening, everyone. Should we wait for another 2-3 minutes before starting the class? I think we should wait. Let people join in. Have you guys received the notes? Have you guys received the PDFs? Okay. Now, you've received the PDFs. There will be no use. There will be no use of those PDFs if you don't revise and keep on revising. Merely by attending the class, understanding here in the class, it does not mean that if you are understanding everything in the class, it does not mean that you'll remember everything. You will have to revise and re-revise. I revise till day. Okay, before coming to the class, I do revise. So it is advisable to revise as much as you can. Then only the concepts will be strengthened in your head. Okay. And apart from revising, keep reading the newspapers as well. You will be in a very comfortable position. Chalo, let's start the class. Those who are late are late. Now, today's class agenda, we will be covering current affairs, from this period to this period, this week. Okay. And multiple, I would say, news pieces are here, important ones. This is a bit lengthy, I would say, PPT. We'll try to cover maximum of it. My target is that we'll cover the entire PPT in this session in 2 hours. But let's see. I will not rush. And in the meanwhile, if you have any doubts, you can raise your hands, ask questions. We'll try to keep the session as much as interactive also. So I would expect you to answer the questions, or if you don't know, then obviously you'll not be answering the question. But if you have any bit of idea about it, do try to answer those questions which I ask. And even if you are wrong, don't worry of being wrong, because if when I correct you, that is going to stay with you for long. Take care. Faktia Kyangte, please let me only scribble on the screen. Now, yesterday we talked about India-China troops disengagement in the Jammu and Kashmir region. Now, I also mentioned there that the SCO summit was coming up, and due to that, experts are anticipating that the troops disengage themselves. So in this, I would say, current affairs of this news, the first thing which I've covered is SCO summit in Samarkand. Okay, the details of that, and it is important for prelims as well as mains point of view. Prime Minister Modi visited Samarkand in Uzbekistan to attend the 22nd meeting of Council of Heads of the States of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. How many member nations are there in Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Anybody in the class? How many member nations of SCO?
8 countries, sir.
8 countries. Can you name them?
China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and India and China, India and Pakistan.
And what about Iran?
Iran joined. I'm not sure.
Okay, chalo, we'll see. SCO is a permanent intergovernmental international organization. International means various countries are part of it. Created in June 2001 in Shanghai. Founding members of SCO: Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Now, you need one thing here. There is one region of the world called Central Asian Region, CAR it is called as. CAR comprises of 5 countries or 5 stans we call them. 2 starts from K, that is Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. 2 starts from T, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and 1 from U, Uzbekistan. These are the 5 countries which are called as Central Asian Region countries or CAR countries. These countries are rich in oil and natural gas reserves. Out of these 5, Turkmenistan is not part of SCO. Rest 4 are part of SCO. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, plus China, plus Russia. These were the founding members of SCO. In 2017, India and Pakistan joined. In 2021, Iran joined. But formal induction in 2023 is planned for Iran. So presently, Iran has joined, but Iran has not become a full-time member. Okay. Now, the SCO summit, the SCO basically, the organization represent approximately 42% of the world's population, 22% of its land area, and 20% of the global GDP. Now, if I have 2 kind of international organizations. One is a global organization, and one is a regional organization. If I talk about global organization, only one organization comes to my mind, that is UN. And if I talk about regional organizations, many regional organizations comes to my mind, like SAARC, BIMSTEC, SCO. So there are many regional organizations, ASEAN. Okay. But this SCO is the biggest regional organization in terms of population, in terms of land territory covered. So if there is this statement, because UPSC at times asks some fact-based statements or gives some fact-based statements, you should be knowing it, that SCO is a regional organization having the world's largest population. Means any regional organization which encompasses the world largest population is SCO, and the largest area is SCO. Okay, so this is a fact about SCO which needs to be kept in mind. Now, it was formed in 2001. Its main aim is to resolve border issues, and this is what something India and China did before the SCO summit. Yesterday's class we learned about it. Fight terrorism, obviously, because this region is impacted with terrorism the most. The AFPAC region, Afghanistan, Pakistan region is here in this region. Bolster regional security, means this region's security should be strengthened, and most of all, counter American influence in Central Asia, because America is quite greedy about the oil and natural gas reserves in the Central Asian region, and America at times have tried to dominate this region and put this region at a standstill. And one of the SCO's aim is to counter American influence in Central Asia, and this is something which is problematic for India, because America is a good friend of India also, and India is part of SCO also. Okay, so SCO members, we've seen China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, India, Pakistan. Iran has now become a full member of SCO in the 21st summit, but yes, abhi induction is left of Iran. It will be inducted in 2023. Decisions taken during the meeting, the SCO summit: a comprehensive action plan for 2020 from 2023 till 2027 for implementation of provisions of Treaty on Long-Term Good Neighborliness, Friendship and Cooperation among member states, because it is the first objective, resolve border conflicts. Decision to develop interconnectivity and create efficient transport corridors among member states. Decision on inclusion of new members was discussed. Iran to become a member state of SCO. Iran was admitted in SCO in 2021, but will become a full-time member in 2023. Launched the procedure of admitting Belarus as a member of SCO. Granting Maldives, Bahrain, Myanmar, UAE, Kuwait the status of dialogue partner. What is dialogue partner? Or who are dialogue partners? Basically, whenever any meeting happens, these people are called to attend the meeting, to attend the dialogue. They are not allowed to vote. They are just allowed to attend the meeting. Then a tourist and cultural capital of SCO was announced, and this is Varanasi in India for the year 2022 to 2023. That is for 1 year. The next piece of news is with respect to this. Program of cooperation in the use of renewable energy resources was signed. Action plan for scientific and technical cooperation in priority areas. The leaders also finalized the concept of interaction between member states in the field of smart agriculture and agro innovation. Now, you don't need to remember all these, that all these agreements were signed or all these points were talked about. You just make down a list. People are talking about renewable energy, people are talking about climate change, security, and scientific and technical cooperation, agricultural cooperation. So you make down a list of points that, these generally are the points on which two or more countries interact with each other these days. They also talk about these days. They also talk about this, what we call it, logistics and all, like supply chain resilience. Yesterday we read about it. Okay. So they talk about this as well. So you make a list, and almost in all the forums, international forums, you will see this happening, or all these or some of these points being discussed. So it will be easier for you to remember. And when it comes to writing in mains, you just have to take down from that list. Acha, this was talked about, because that much you can remember, and this can be talked about. Like this, you can write your answers. Highlight of PM Modi's speech. The Prime Minister delivered a speech over there. He basically stressed the need to develop reliable, resilient, and diversified supply chains. He's talking about supply chains. Highlighted the strength of Indian economy. Now, before going ahead, I would want to discuss this word, soft power. Do you know what soft power is? Anybody in the class?
Most of the countries listen when India talks about any issue. Like that, like when other countries, like if Japan introduces any project, they will be reluctant to join it. But if India initiates anything, they listen to it.
This is India's soft power.
Yes.
And why do they listen to India?
Because of democracy, maybe.
Democracy is there in Japan as well.
We always talk about peace, and we always have respected UN rules and all. We follow it.
ठीक है. देखो, power is, if I have to define power can be defined as the ability to influence someone, the ability to make someone do what you want. Okay. So power, since it is the ability to make someone do what you want, is of two types. First is hard power. Hard power is military equipments and all. The more you have, the more people will listen to you. Okay, because they'll be afraid. Okay. So this is your hard power. Okay. And another type of power is soft power. Soft power are basically your capabilities, your achievements, which make other people listen to you. Like we have a strong economy, so people want to attach themselves with us. Like if we have good, let's suppose we have a rich culture, we have rich cultural diversity. Like for example, Buddhism. The birth of Buddhism is here in India. Okay. And we have multiple religious places with respect to Buddhism. So people where Buddhism is practiced, the countries where Buddhism is practiced would want to, attach themselves with us so that their people can come and go. This is the soft power. This is our capability, our skill sets, which is attracting other people towards us. Okay. That is why PM Modi was highlighting the strength of Indian economy. He was not saying that come and attach yourself with us. He was just highlighting the Indian economy, the strength of Indian economy, because this is our soft power. Highlighted the importance of cultivation and consumption of millets. Millets are basically considered to be alternate foods, food supplements. Like we have wheat, we have rice, then we have millets also. And 2023 is designated as the International Year for Millets. Why millets are being promoted so much? Because supply of wheat was restricted during the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay. And India is a big producer of millets throughout the world. So millets can be consumed as an alternate of wheat. Okay. Then he highlighted the strength of India in medical and wellness tourism. Again, soft power. He emphasized on the need for better regional connectivity. Okay. Soft power, everyone got it? If you have any doubt with respect to soft power, please raise your hand. Okay. And this is a technical word which is, quite commonly used in newspapers and all. So you should be knowing it. However, there is another word called as soft state. UPSC once asked a question in the essay paper. The question was, India is a soft state. Now, what do you understand by this? Do you understand this? That India has a very strong soft power. That is why we are calling India as a soft state.
It is related to the politicians or public officials here in our country. They they are very disobedient. Like they don't follow proper rules and all. Kind of indiscipline.
Exactly. Indiscipline, yes, it is reflected in multiple forms. Now, this simply means that laws are made, but they are not implemented by the government officials. That is why India is a soft state. And most of the aspirants who were writing mains, I think in 2011 or 12, somewhere in this years, this topic was asked. They directly interpreted it that India's soft power is strong and this is related to that. And they wrote the entire essay on that. And they did not get marks. Soft state simply means a state or a country where laws and rules, regulations are made, but they are not implemented properly. Why? Because they are indisciplined, there is a lot of corruption and all these things are there. So UPSC at times tests you on this. So next piece of news, Varanasi has been nominated as the first ever SCO, Tourism and Cultural Capital. Mind you, it is the first ever. This is the first time any city has been named as a, tourism and cultural capital. And from next year onwards, it is going to remain there as a tourism and cultural capital for 1 year, and then next year another city from the SCO countries will be chosen as the cultural and tourism capital. of SCO. Significance of being chosen as a tourism and cultural capital, that it will promote tourism, cultural and humanitarian exchanges. It underlines the country's ancient civilizational links. Varanasi is said to be world's one of the most ancient cities, one of the most ancient cities of the entire world. It is called as. Under the framework of this major cultural outreach program, the number of events will be hosted in Varanasi, and for which guests will be invited to participate from SCO member states. Means it will boost tourism in Varanasi. It is a city in UP, Uttar Pradesh, based on Ganga River. It is known by its early name known as Banaras, or the ancient name was Kashi. And it is Prime Minister's constituency as well. Next is Iran, because our Prime Minister also met with Iran's president on the sidelines of SCO. Iran was also invited for that summit. Okay. But before going into this topic, I would want to discuss another, I would say, concept, and that concept is string of pearls. Have you heard about this string of pearls? This term, have you heard of?
So it's China policy to connect string around India, ports around India.
To build ports around India. Like, for example, this is India. Okay. Now, China is constructing various ports or undertaking various ports around India. Okay. Now, if I have to demarcate China's ports around India, there is this Gwadar port in Pakistan. There is, I'll show it to you through an image. Wait. This is basically China's string of pearls policy. Okay. Now, China is wanting to encircle India by collaborating with other countries and taking various ports, controlling various ports there. In Pakistan, it has controlled Gwadar. In Djibouti, it has controlled Djibouti port. Then in Maldives, Marau port. In Sri Lanka, Hambantota. In Bangladesh, Chittagong. And in Myanmar also, it has now taken two ports. One is in Coco Island here, and the other one is I think Kyokpyu port, okay, which is under China. So it has encircled India. This is called as string of pearls, and pearls here means each port is a pearl. They want if their strategy could be that, if they have a problem with India in future, they can block India's international trade coming from this region. So they can block it. But India has also countered China's string of pearls. India has also, taken various control of various ports. Like here we have the Chabar port in Iran, just bothering the Gwadar port. Then in Maldives, we have control over the Malé port. Then in Sri Lanka, the East Container Terminal in Colombo port. In Bangladesh, we have Chattogram and Mongla ports, two ports which we control. In Myanmar, we have the Sitwe port. So we have countered the string of pearls policy of China by doing this. Our news piece is related to the Gwadar port. Sorry, the Chabar port presently in Iran. Because when Indian Prime Minister met with the Iranian president, we discussed that what is the status of development of Chabahar port. We go back, India, Iran, it is. So this is the Chabar port, and about the Chabar port project, how the Chabar port project is going on. The Chabar port is a seaport in Chabar, located in the southeastern Iran. There are two terminals basically in Chabar port, Shahid Kalantari and Shahid Beheshti, each of which has 5 berths. In May 2016, India and Iran signed a bilateral agreement in which India would refurbish one of the berths in Shahid Beheshti. India has nothing to do in Shahid Kalantari. And Shahid Beheshti, 1 out of 5 berths India had to develop and reconstruct a 600-meter long container handling facility at the port. Now, why did we want to go through Iran? Because see, we had connections with Afghanistan also at that time. We were not allowed to have trade through Pakistan, via Pakistan with Afghanistan. So we were doing it through here, or we wanted to do it through here. And we have built or constructed this road also, Zaranj Dilaram. And there are also talks that, this Chabahar to Zahedan, we are constructing a railway line, a railway link. Okay. So this entire project will establish our presence in the region and we'll able to encircle Pakistan through this Chabahar port. But it is not so easy as it is said. Now, history of ties between India and Iran. We shared a border till 1947 because presently Iran shares a border with Pakistan and Pakistan was part of British India at that time. We established diplomatic links in March 1950. Both South Asia and Persian Gulf have strong commercial, energy, cultural, and people-to-people links. Because, a lot of oil was imported from Iran. It is now not imported. Why it is not imported, we'll discuss. Okay. So there were strong ties with this part of the world, that is Iran. Now, relations during the Cold War period. The Cold War was one period where there were 2 blocks. One was USA's capitalist bloc. The other one was USSR's socialist bloc. India was not in any of them. India was here, non-aligned movement bloc. But India was said to be tilted a bit towards USSR. And Iran was a very good friend of USA. So relations between India and Iran suffered during that time due to their political interest, due to their differing political interest. Okay. But after the Cold War period, also the relations initially suffered, but later on they were fine. Iran's continued support for Pakistan in the India-Pakistan conflict and India's close relations with Iraq during Iran-Iraq war greatly strained the bilateral ties during the post-Cold War era. However, in the 1990s, India and Iran supported Northern Alliance's fight against Taliban in Afghanistan. Actually, Taliban was there in power in Afghanistan from 1996 till 2001. And both Iran and India opposed Taliban being in power at that time. So this is one thing which brought Iran and India on the same table. Okay. They continued to collaborate in supporting broad-based anti-Taliban government and all. India has expressed strong opposition to Iran's nuclear program. Now, yesterday, we studied about IAEA, where IAEA has expressed concerns with respect to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, okay, which is Europe's biggest nuclear power plant. Now, what happened? The Western countries were suspicious about the nuclear program of Iran as well. It was 2015, 16, something like this. And Iran was told to open its borders so that IAEA could come and inspect the nuclear program of Iran. And Iran refused that IAEA cannot come to our country. We will not open our nuclear facilities for audit. And USA levied sanctions on Iran because of this. Iran basically is a Shia dominated country. There are basically two sects in Islam. One is the Sunnis, the other is the Shias. The countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman and all are Sunni dominated, and Iran is Shia dominated. These two countries or these two blocks, both are in West Asia or Middle East, are not at good terms with each other. They're always fighting. And this bloc in the 1970s had a problem with USA. And that is why Iran was a friend of USA during the Cold War period. Okay. So Iran said that we have a constant threat from our neighboring Sunnis. So we are developing our nuclear program just to safeguard ourselves so that this nuclear powers or these nuclear bombs act as deterrent. But it did not open its borders for inspection by IAEA. USA levied sanctions on Iran. USA pressurized India. India also succumbed to the pressure. And we stopped importing Iranian oil since 2019. This was a big blow to our relations and to the Chabar port project as well. India-Iran bilateral trade during financial year 2020-21 was USD $2.1 billion, a decrease of 56% from $4.8 billion during financial year 2019-20. Now this year we were importing oil. Our relations were good. This year we stopped importing oil and you see the trade went down. Major Indian exports: rice, tea, sugar, fresh fruits, drugs, man-made staple fibers, electrical machinery, artificial jewelry. Major Indian imports from Iran: dry fruit, inorganic, organic chemicals, glass, natural or cultured pearls, precious or semi-precious stones, leather, gypsum, etc. You can see that oil is not here in Indian imports from Iran because it was stopped in 2019. Why has India stopped importing crude oil from Iran? You know the answer already, that in 2019, due to sanctions imposed by US on Iran, India stopped importing crude oil from the country. Before 2019, India was the second biggest buyer of oil from Iran. And you know what? India was paying Iran in rupees. India was not paying in dollars. We had a currency swap agreement with Iran. Now, why is it in India's favor to restart oil import from Iran? Firstly, most of India's refineries are adept to Iranian sweet oil. The quality of oil, or the variant of oil which was coming from Iran, was termed as sweet oil. And our refineries over here in India are now used to it. Secondly, Iran trades oil for Indian rupee or goods. So we did not have our dependency on dollar decreased. And thirdly, transportation cost of goods from Bandar Abbas port and Chabar port were also lower. Chabar port, you've seen the location of Chabar port. Okay. Bandar Abbas port is somewhere here. So comparatively, the transportation cost is less. So the oil is also cheaper. Now, the next is National Logistics Policy. What do you mean by this term, logistics? Any other person other than Shanti Priya? If no person and Shanti knows the answer, she can talk.
It refers to certain plan which we make before implementing something, like what all items are needed or places, infrastructure kind of thing.
No, it is not the infrastructure. Basically, it is all about your transportation. It entails infrastructure, but let's suppose there is this mine over here. ठीक है, a coal mine is it. ठीक है. So from the coal mine, the coal has to be mined and has to be taken into factories. Okay, and just before the factory, there is this inventory unit of coal. The coal will come from this mine and be stored over here. So how the coal will come? Will it come by trucks? Will it come by railway lines? This is called as logistics. And storing it over here, this is part of logistics. Not the infrastructure, but the mode of transport. Okay. And in India, transportation, like for example, you get the end product. Let's suppose you get the product for ₹100 in the market. You go, you buy a product. Let's suppose a pack of juice or a juice box, the real juice which you get, it is of 100. It is of 118, but let's consider it ₹100. Now in that ₹100 which you are paying to the shopkeeper, transportation cost is included in that. And per 100 rupees, the transportation cost in India on an average is rupees 13 to 14. This is the logistics cost. And in developed countries, this logistics cost is rupees 8 only. Just imagine, their logistics is cheap as compared to our logistics. Now, this national logistics policy basically aims to bring this logistics cost from double digit to single digit by streamlining logistics. Obviously, logistics will happen on infrastructure. But national logistics policy is not talking about infrastructure development. It is talking about only transportation. Okay. So let's see. Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveiled national logistics policy that seeks to address the challenges facing the transport sector and bring down the logistics cost for business from 13 to 14% to a single digit, like 14 rupees to single digit. It was first proposed in budget of 2020. And it looks to ensure first to last mile connectivity at a faster pace. Okay. Multi-modal logistics parks. Multi-modal means multiple modes of logistics like railways, roadways, waterways, airways. These are modes of transport. They should be interconnected. Interministerial collaboration to push ease of doing business. Okay. Now, we will learn a bit of details about this as well. What is logistics? Logistics is basically the process of planning and executing the efficient transportation and storage of goods from the point of origin to the point of consumption. Planning and executing the efficient transportation is the keyword over here. The goal of logistics is to meet customer requirements in a timely, cost-effective manner. The worth of Indian logistics market is estimated $200 billion. And it gives livelihood to more than 22 million people. There are many, I would say, logistics companies which have popped up, like Delivery, those who are delivering on behalf of these, I would say, online merchants. The need for a logistics policy. Obviously, there is a need for a logistics policy because logistics cost in India is high as compared to other developed countries. To reduce the logistics cost, which is somewhere around 14% to 8%. If the cost is reduced, then improved efficiency, cutting cost across various sectors of the economy. It can cut costs across various sectors of the economy, and value addition also can be encouraged. Features and benefit. It is basically there should be a unified logistics interface platform, an online platform, a new digital platform like ease of logistics services. This is to be built basically, first of all. And this online platform will enable smooth logistics. Let's suppose you have to send something to Delhi from Telangana. And you see that the fastest mode of transportation is by air, but that is very expensive. So you'll start looking for alternate modes of logistics. And you find that if my product goes from Hyderabad to, let's suppose, a place near Delhi by air, that is Noida, and from there it goes by road to Delhi, then that is comparatively cheaper and the time is almost same. So all these things will be enabled on this platform. You'll be able to connect various modes of transport over here. Then we are also talked about PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. Has anybody heard about this, the Gati Shakti scheme?
Yes, sir. In this, various ministries and departments of governments come together and work, like railways and roadways, different ministries.
16 different ministries are there at one place, and basically what they are doing that easy clearances for infrastructure projects in India should be done. So I told you that the national logistics policy is not about infrastructure creation but logistics. For infrastructure creation, there is PM Gati Shakti. So PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan will work in tandem with national logistics policy. They'll work hand in hand. If infrastructure will be there, then only logistics will be there. Okay, so this way you think. National logistics policy is not talking about building infrastructure. Okay, so the next piece of news, I have also covered this, the PM Gati Shakti Yojana. Okay, so you should be knowing this also. And what is this? It is a rupees 100 trillion Gati Shakti or National Master Plan for Multi-Modal Connectivity. Now here is a plan for infrastructure creation. On that infrastructure, or by using that infrastructure, logistics will happen, and logistics will be regulated by, or you will be inspired by, the National Logistics Policy of India. It is basically done to expedite infrastructure project implementation in India. Okay. Now, about Gati Shakti, it is essentially a digital platform. It is a digital platform. It is not a physical scheme or something like that, where 16 ministries are together. Like, for example, if a railway line has to be constructed through Northeast, the railway ministry will have to take permission from Department of Northeast. Then it will have to take permission from Ministry of Environment and Forest, because forest clearance is necessary. Ministry of Railways is there. Okay. So all these ministries, if they are at one platform, then an integrated planning can be done. Coordinated implementation of infrastructure connectivity projects can be done. This is the basic purpose of Gati Shakti. Gati means fast, Shakti means strength. Fast-paced implementation of infrastructure projects will give or will strengthen our economy. This is the basic principle behind Gati Shakti. An integrated multimodal network planning group will be responsible for unified planning and integrated proposals under Gati Shakti plan. Now, this platform, this digital platform, has been developed by Bhaskaracharya National Institute for Space Application and Geoinformatics. It is called as BISAG. Now, the Gati Shakti master plan, roadways capacity to be increased. Then around 200 new airports, heliports, and water aerodromes. Water aerodromes are basically those kind of planes which can land on the sea surface or which can land on waters. Then railway transport cargo capacity to be increased. Transmission network, electricity transmission network to be increased. Renewable capacity to be increased to 225 gigawatt by financial year 25. Can anybody in the class tell me that what is the target for financial year 2030, that how much electricity we have to generate from renewable sources?
500 gigawatts.
500 gigawatts we have to generate, and for financial year 25 we are keeping it as 225. Now how much we are generating? Anybody in the class? Now we are generating around 167 to 170 gigawatts. Okay. 4G connectivity to villages by financial year 22, around 20 new mega food parks to be developed. This is basically the PM Gati Shakti master plan in India. Next is the World Ozone Day. Again, the concept of ozone layer depletion. We'll first do that. Now, this is the Earth. This is the Earth's atmosphere. And in the Earth's atmosphere, we have ozone as one of the crucial gases. Here we have the sun. The sun rays come, and one of the important components of sun rays is the UV rays. UV rays are of two types, harmful types and non-harmful types. So what started happening? This ozone started to disappear. This ozone started to disappear. It disappeared completely. Right. It started to disappear, especially over the poles. And there was this threat that, this ozone basically was responsible for absorbing the harmful UV radiations. And the remaining sunlight came to the Earth when the remaining UV radiations were absorbed by the ozone. Now just imagine if ozone is not there, these harmful UV radiations would have come to Earth. We would not be able to survive because it would have burnt our skins. The vegetation would have been destroyed. The soils would have been destroyed. There would be no agricultural productivity. So in 1970s and 80s, we discovered that our ozone layer is depleting, and due to which harmful UV radiations are coming on the Earth. They have started to come on the Earth. Then we found out that why this is depleting, why the ozone layer is depleting. We found out that humans are responsible for it. Well, how humans are responsible for it? Because humans are using various ozone depleting substances. We call them ODS, ozone depleting substances. And one of the major ozone depleting substances was CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. Chlorofluorocarbon was used as a refrigerant in refrigerators, air conditioners. It was used in perfumes and deos. It was used for medicinal purposes as well. So we need to phase out CFCs, chlorofluorocarbon. If we stop using chlorofluorocarbons, this ozone layer depletion will start healing itself. And we decided this in the Montreal Protocol, which was signed in 1987. On 16th of September 1987, it was signed. And that is celebrated as the World Ozone Day till now. Now, this year Montreal Protocol turned 35 years. So, the theme of this year's Ozone Day was Montreal Protocol at 35, Global Cooperation Protecting Life on Earth. So, this has happened, and CFCs, we have stopped using CFCs. CFCs have now been replaced by HFCs in refrigeration. Like in your fridge, refrigerator, or in your ACs, there is a gas which is there, and that gas is called as HFC, hydrofluorocarbons. Okay. Hydrofluorocarbon is not an ozone depleting substance. Hence, ozone layer has started to heal itself. And ozone is back. That is why this Montreal Protocol is considered to be one of the most successful international treaties. Now, under this Montreal Protocol, all the countries who had signed Montreal Protocol, whether developing or developed, have equal but differentiated responsibilities reflected in different timetables. This simply means the developed countries had to phase off or had to stop using CFCs at, they were giving less time to phase out CFCs. And developing countries were given comparatively more time. Like the developed countries were told that by 2000, you have to stop using CFCs in 1987. But developing countries, they were told that by 2010, you have to stop using CFCs. So it was reflected in different timetables, but they both had to phase out using CFCs. So this was Montreal Protocol. But, this is not just the end. There was an amendment to the Montreal Protocol in 2016. Now, according to Montreal Protocol, CFCs had been replaced by HFCs. HFCs which are not ozone depleting substances. But now, in 2016, there was this Kigali Agreement, which was an amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, and it was decided that now HFCs also have to be phased out. Why HFCs have to be phased out? They are not ozone depleting. HFCs have to be phased out because they are GHGs, greenhouse gases. They are termed as short-lived climatic pollutants, which have a very harm or a very high potential of causing greenhouse effect. So this Kigali Agreement entered into force in 2019. It divided nations into 3 groups to achieve 80% reduction in HFCs consumption by 2047. It is a legally binding agreement. Up till July 2021, 122 countries have ratified the Kigali Agreement. Being under Group 2, India will develop its national strategy for phasing down of hydrofluorocarbons in 2023. And we have to phase down, or we have to, stop using HFCs maximum by 2000. In this time period, we have to stop using HFCs. They said that countries are divided into 3 groups. The developed countries, they have to stop using HFCs maximum by 2030. The developing countries by 2040, and by 2047. The least developed countries are given more time. They have to stop using by 2047. India opposed this. India did not ratify it up till late 2021. We have ratified it in 2021. But India was not ratifying it because India was seeing something exploitative happening here. India believed that, phasing out of HFCs as refrigerants means we will have to develop new technology. And, if we are not able to develop that new technology, we will have to buy that new technology from the Western countries, the developed countries, because they are definitely going to develop. So they said that it is basically a game plot of the Western developed countries. But yes, India has finally agreed to it. They have ratified it, and by 2037, 38, you might see HFCs being phased out. About HFCs, they are a group of industrial chemicals, replacement for ozone depleting substances they were used as. They are not ozone depleting substances, they are part of short-lived chemical pollutants or climate pollutants, sorry, with high global warming potential. That is why they are being phased out. Next piece of news, International Day for Democracy. September 15th is celebrated all across the world as International Day for Democracy. This news piece has been added just because, many a times UPSC asks questions on days. About it was established through a resolution passed by the United Nations General Assembly in 2007. So since 2007, we are celebrating this day. And, this year, we celebrated the 15th anniversary of International Democracy Day. Okay. Background: in 1997, Inter-Parliamentary Union (IPU) adopted a Universal Declaration on Democracy, and that is why this day is celebrated as International Day for Democracy. Nothing so much significant, just the day you have to remember. Next piece of news: Swachh Sujal Pradesh. Sujal means where there is water supply. Okay. The Union Jal Shakti Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat has declared Andaman and Nicobar Islands as India's first Swachh Sujal Pradesh. Now, all villages of Andaman and Nicobar Island have been certified as Har Ghar Jal and verified as open defecation free. Har Ghar Jal means there is a functional household tap connection. We call it FHTC in every household, where 55 liters of water per person per day is available. Now, India's first district where Har Ghar Jal means water in every household was provided was Burhanpur in MP. And it was in July 2022. Just imagine that in 2022, we have got India's first district where every household is having a functional household tap connection, FHTC, and 55 liters of water is available per day per person through that FHTC. So this is something which is not to feel proud of, not to feel proud about. The three components of Swachh Sujal Pradesh. Now we have Andaman Nicobar Island as a Sujal Pradesh, means the entire state has safe and secure drinking water supply and management. They are ODF plus. ODF means open defecation free. No one is defecating in the open. They are using functional toilets. ODF sustainability is there, and we call it ODF free if people are defecating in their functional toilets. And there is another tag called as ODF plus. ODF plus is given if ODF is achieved plus solid and liquid waste management is also happening in that region. So in Andaman and Nicobar has ODF plus tag, means open defecation free, though it is, but apart from it, it also has provisions for solid and liquid waste management. Next is cross-cutting interventions like convergence, information, education, and communication activities to educate people about various facets of water management like water conservation, wise water use, wastewater treatment, and reuse. Means they also have established a mechanism to dispense information, education, and communication with the people that what are the benefits of water conservation, how water should be conserved, how you can participate in it, what are the future plans and all. So This is basically spreading awareness, communicating with the people, making them part of the program. This is called as IEC, Information, Education and Communication. This is also happening in that. So these three components are achieved in any particular state or a UT, that state or UT will be termed as Swachh Sujal Pradesh. Safe and secure drinking water supply and management means 55 liters of water per person per day through a FHTC. ODF plus means open defecation free, plus there is a solid and liquid waste management system. Then next is cross-cutting interventions, like they have this mechanism in place to disseminate information and all. Now, yesterday I gave you a task, I think, East Asia Summit. Did I? No, I did not. Okay, yesterday we talked about East Asia Summit, I think. Okay. So East Asia Summit basically is again. Chalo, Shanti. What task it was?
You asked us to like gather information about East Asia Summit.
So have you gathered?
Yes, sir.
Chalo, what information do you have about East Asia Summit?
It's a forum of 18 member states.
Okay.
It was established in 2005. And the objective or aim is to promote peace, stability, and economic prosperity in East Asia region.
East Asia region. Okay. Can you name those 18 countries?
Yes, sir. We have 10 members of ASEAN.
Wait. We have 10 members from ASEAN.
Yes.
Okay. Apart from it?
The other 8 countries are Russia, Japan, China, Australia, India,
Russia, Japan,
China,
Australia,
New Zealand, India, Republic of Korea, South Korea, USA.
These are the 8 countries.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And 10 ASEAN countries?
Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Brunei, and Indonesia.
Okay. Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei,
Philippines,
Vietnam. So it is important to know the countries. It is important that you know the 10 ASEAN countries. Okay. It is basically 10 ASEAN plus 8 forum, East Asia Summit. Now, how you remember these 8 countries? We'll see. We'll divide them in a group of 2. USA, Russia. These are 2 very good friends. I hope you are understanding the sarcasm. China, India, very good friends. Okay. Australia, New Zealand, they are indeed good friends. Actually, they are good friends, but India and China are especially good friends, and US and Russia are especially good friends. And then you have Japan and Korea. These also are good friends. Okay. So in this block of 2, you can remember, and 10 ASEAN countries you'll have to remember. Okay. This is basically East Asia Summit. It is Indo-Pacific's premier forum for strategic dialogue. Okay. Strategic dialogue means they discuss safety and security over here. The members of East Asia Summit already discussed about East Asia Summit. 18 members. Okay. ASEAN leads the forum. Remember this. UPSC can ask from here. Apart from it, it can ask members also. ASEAN leads the forum. How it leads the forum? The chair position means the chairman of East Asia Summit rotates only between ASEAN member states. it does not pass on to the rest of the 8 states or the 8 countries. Okay. So this is its way of retaining leadership in, or ASEAN's way of retaining leadership in East Asia Summit. Okay. There's an annual leaders summit which is usually held alongside ASEAN leaders meeting in the 4th quarter of every year. Okay. In addition to leaders summit, meetings of East Asia Summit's foreign ministers and economic ministers are held annually also. Okay. So this time there was this commerce minister, means our economic ministers were meeting annually. That is why it was in news. Now, constitution bench listings. What are constitution benches?
Whenever there is an amendment bill passed in the parliament, like to study it, like a 5-member bench or a 7-member bench will be set up in Supreme Court.
So it is only in case of an amendment passed?
Or to even check the validity of the act, like if it is violating the basic structure or not.
Okay. So if any law is passed or any amendment to the constitution is passed, then only constitution bench can be set up. This is what you want to say?
Yes.
Okay. Chalo. First we'll see that what is a constitutional bench. Article 145(3) of the Constitution stipulates that a minimum of 5 judges must sit for a case involving a substantial question of law involving the interpretation of the Constitution. If any case is there in the Supreme Court, any case, and there is this, in that case, there is this substantial question of law involving the interpretation of the Constitution, then a constitutional bench will be set up by the Supreme Court. This bench is referred to as the Constitution bench, and it is there mentioned in the Constitution also, Article 145(3) of the Constitution. Okay. Not only with respect to any law or any amendment act of the Constitution. Okay. Conflicting verdicts of 3-judge benches also need 5-judge benches. These are also called as Constitution bench to hear the matter. Now, why is this in news? Why is this in news? This is in news because the Supreme Court in August 2022 had notified that 25 constitutional bench matters will be listed before relevant benches from August 29 onwards. Now, Supreme Court basically had been recently criticized a lot that Supreme Court is not forming constitution benches. There are, I think, 34 judges in the Supreme Court, and 5 judges if you put on one case, then how the system will run efficiently. There is already a pendency of a lot of cases. So, plus during the COVID pandemic and all, there were a few disruptions in the functioning of the courts. So the constitutional bench matters were very less. In the recent decades, they were very less. 0.1% of the cases coming to Supreme Court are only heard by constitutional benches now. Whereas earlier, when we got independence, this figure was somewhere around 15%. 15% of the cases coming to the Supreme Court were heard by constitutional bench. When we got independence, this was that time. And when the new Chief Justice, Mr. UU Lalit, made this announcement that 25 constitutional bench matters will be picked up, it gladdened many Supreme Court watchers. Now, but there is a reason behind it, that why so many constitutional benches were formed earlier, but now they are not. In earlier period, basically, The apex court, means the Supreme Court, took on a large number of constitutional law matters, as it treated violations of fundamental rights also as a substantial question of constitutional law. We have this right that if our fundamental rights are violated, we can directly approach the Supreme Court. So initially, when we got independence, at that time, Supreme Court was also immature. We all were immature as a country. So any case with respect to violation of fundamental right which went to the Supreme Court referred that case to the constitutional bench or formed a constitutional bench to take on that. And this caused a lot of problems between the government and the judiciary, because judgments released by constitutional bench have more weightage and the government cannot do anything about it. But slowly and gradually, as we matured as a democracy or as a country, the judiciary also lowered down the number of constitutional bench cases. And in the recent decades, so they were extremely low. There was this very famous case, Keshwar and Bharti case, which we discussed, I think, yesterday or day before yesterday. There was this 13-judge bench, 13-judge constitutional bench to hear this case in 1973. Now you cannot imagine a 13-judge bench sitting on a particular case. It is difficult. Now, challenges in forming the constitutional bench is basically, pandemic had disrupted the functioning of the court, which increased basically the pendency in apex court. And we are not able to form constitutional benches. We have to, dispense those cases as well. Although the top court is considered to be the people's court, the constitution framers believed it. But, the court has its own problems. That is why the constitutional bench cases have come down. But the recent decision of the Chief Justice of India has, brought a ray of hope that, number of constitutional bench cases will increase. Now, the next piece of news is with respect to United Nations General Assembly, UNGA. Now, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar arrived in New York to participate in the 77th session of United Nations General Assembly. Actually, every year in the month of September, this annual session of United Nations General Assembly happens. Where is United Nations General Assembly headquartered? Anyone in the class?
New York, sir.
New York. Okay. So every year in New York, United Nations General Assembly general meeting happens. Principal organs of United Nations. There are 5 principal organs of United Nations. Earlier, there were 6. United Nations General Assembly, it is basically the main deliberative body or policy making or law making body. Like we have Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha in India. United Nations as United Nations General Assembly, where all the member nations are part of it. How many member nations are there in United Nations?
$198.
It is 193.
Okay.
Okay. United Nations Security Council, the second principal organ, which is responsible for maintaining peace and security throughout the world. It has 5 permanent plus 10 non-permanent members, total 15 members, also headquartered in New York. International Court of Justice, it is also 15-member body. It is just like we have the Supreme Court in India. UN has International Court of Justice. Where is it headquartered? It is headquartered in The Hague, Netherlands. The only principal organ which is headquartered out of New York. So this is also New York. This is also New York. United Nations Secretariat, basically this is the main administrative body of United Nations. All the behind the scenes happens over here. The head of this United Nations Secretariat is also called as the head of UN. Okay, UN Secretary General, he is called as. Okay, and presently the UN Secretary General or the head of UN is Antonio Guterres. Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, it is basically responsible for coordination among various principal organs for socio-economic development programs. Okay. Now it is I think a 54 member body. The trusteeship council is no more existing. It got dissolved in 1993. So presently we have 5 principal organs, and one of the main principal organs, United Nations General Assembly, where all the members meet every year in September. There was a meeting held over there. United Nations General Assembly formed in 1945, main deliberative body of all 193 members. September में meeting होती है. There is headquarters in New York. Decisions are taken by majority. The UNGA president, just like we have the speaker in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, the UNGA has a president, and a 1-year term is accorded to the president. About the 77th UNGA meet, a watershed moment. The theme of this year's meeting was a watershed moment. What watershed moment? Transformative solutions to interlocking challenges. Interlocking challenges means Russia versus the West is referred to over here. Okay. And we need to have some transformative solutions. Those kind of solutions which will transform the global order. In India also, talked about a lot for reforming multilateralism. Multilateralism basically means, there should be some changes in the framework of UNSC. UNSC, remember, has 5 permanent plus 10 non-permanent members. India is presently a non-permanent member, but India is wanting to become a permanent member right from very beginning. There is this grouping G4. G4 comprises of India, Brazil, Japan, and Germany. They actually advocate for their permanent membership in UNSC. And then there is L69 group. This group is headed by India. This is a group of developing countries from Asia, Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, small island developing nations and all. So they are headed by India, and they also want reforms in United Nations Security Council. So G4 also wants reforms. L69 also wants reforms. India is part of both G4 and L69. Now, this is all about UNGA. Next piece of news is with respect to China blocking the listing of Sajid Mir at UNSC. Okay. Now you will understand that why is India wanting reforms at UNSC. Okay. But before going into this, just let me go and grab some water and go, and I'll come back. Okay. China blocked listing of Sajid Mir at UNSC, United Nations Security Council, because United Nations Security Council is that organ of United Nations which is responsible for maintaining peace and stability throughout the world. And there are 15 members in UNSC, 5 plus 10. Now, any organization or any individual have to be termed as a global terrorist. If they have to be termed as a global terrorist, then the resolution for terming that person or an organization as a global terrorist is picked up for voting in UNSC, United Nations Security Council. And all the 15 members, if they vote that this person is a global terrorist, that this person should be labeled as a global terrorist, then only that person will be labeled as a global terrorist. In this case, it was Sajid Mir. Even if one country says that, no, we do not want to term this person as a global terrorist, in this case, China, or China, even if it says that I want to hold the decision as of now, I want time for that. Only if, even if one country, whether permanent, non-permanent, says that, we do not want to term this person as a global terrorist, or we want to hold, then that resolution is not adopted. It is blocked. This is called as the veto power. Now, China, obviously, China is a good friend of Pakistan, or Pakistan is a good friend of China, and China is not a good friend of India. So India and USA jointly attempted that there should be a resolution according to which Sajid Mir should be labeled as a global terrorist, and sanctions should be levied on it. They have this 1267 list, UNSC. What is this 1267 list? I'll just discuss a bit. But before that, who is Sajid Mir? Sajid Mir basically is an Lashkar-e-Taiba commander who was instrumental in implementing the 26/11 attacks in India. Basically, Ajmal Kasab was talking over the satellite phone to his masters in Pakistan. He was his master in Pakistan, Sajid Mir. He was commanding him to do this, to do that, not to do that. Mir recruited and trained Kasab and others. So that is why India wanted him to be labeled as a global terrorist. But China blocked it. The question is that has China done it for the first time? No. China has a poor track record in this case. Initially, we wanted to label Hafiz Saeed and Zakir Rahman. These people were responsible for attacks on the parliament in India. Then also China blocked it. China blocked Masood Azhar's listing 2008 to 2010 and 2016 to 2019. But when Pulwama attacks happened in 2019, China also said that this is a global terrorist. This person is a global terrorist, should be labeled as a global terrorist. Very recently, in June 2022, Abdur Makki, this resolution was blocked by China. Then in August 2022, Abdul Rauf Azhar, this was blocked by China. And now Sajid Mir. So from June 2022 till September, 3 persons or 3 blockings have been made by China. First, second, and now Sajid Mir. That is why I'm saying that China has a poor track record in this aspect. The basics of sanctions, if I talk about. Chapter 7 of United Nations Charter, the United Nations Security Council, can take action to maintain or restore international peace and security. What kind of action? Actions are, applications of sanctions. What are sanctions? Article 41 of UN Charter basically define what is sanction. Sanctions is, it encompasses a broad range of enforcement options that do not involve use of armed force. Armed force is not involved, but other enforcement options like economic and trade embargoes and freezing of funds, travel bans and all. These kind of restrictions or these kind of enforcement options are called as sanctions. The process by which sanctioning is done. Each sanction regime is administered by a sanctions committee. Sanctions regime means the United Nations Security Council has formed various sanctions regime, like for example, the sanctions or the regime for terrorists in the AFPAC region or the Western Asian region, where ISIS is present, where Al Qaeda is present, where Lashkar-e-Taiba is present, where Jaish-e-Mohammed is present, then Hizbul Mujahideen. All these are present in the AFPAC region or the West Asian region, West Asia and South Asia region. So they have a separate sanctions regime for these kind of terrorists. They have a separate sanctions regime for terrorist organizations in Africa. Like in Africa, there is Boko Haram. So the sanctions regime for Al Qaeda, ISIS or IS was earlier known as ISIL, Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. This is called as 1267 Sanctions Committee or Al Qaeda and ISIL Sanctions Committee. This regime, which is particularly for the terrorist organizations and individuals in West Asia and South Asia region. Okay, so all the 15 members vote for it. The sanctions committee ensure the implementation of the sanctions and can decide by consensus to adopt targeted sanctions against specific individuals, enterprises, or entities. The procedure. Who is the host? Who is the host? Okay, I'll connect with AKS team.